Greetings, it's Iain from RTO here. Welcome to another classic album review. Today this one is when I do research to find some classic albums, there's one album that keeps appearing on lists. And it's this one, Crowded House's Temple of the Low Men. But when it didn't sell much in the UK or America, but it was big in Australia and New Zealand. So I thought, let's have a look at this one. So why didn't it sell much outside of Australia and New Zealand? So Crowded House are a rock band that were formed in Melbourne, Australia in 1985. Its founding members were New Zealander Neil Finn, who's currently in Fleetwood Mac, Australians Paul Hester on drums and Nick Seymour on bass. The people that have been in this band was Tim Finn, which is Neil's brother, Americans Mark Hart, that played in Supertramp, Matt Sherrod. But Finn and Seymour are the sole consistent members of the group since its formation and the original stint from 1985 to 1996. Sadly though, in 2005 Paul Hester committed suicide, which is a great shame. The group did reform in 2006 with drummer Matt Sherrod and released 2 more albums that went to #1 in the Australian charts. Then they went into a bit of a hiatus, and a revised lineup of Crowded House would tour UK in 2020, but that all went down the pan, of course, because of a thing called COVID. But the new lineup is Neil Finn, Nick Seymour, Mitchell Froome and Finn's son Liam and Elroy. But worldwide now they've sold over 15 million albums, and they were inducted into the RIA Hall of Fame. So the album in question is this one, Temple of the Low Men. It's their second album, and it was released on Capitol Records on the 5th of July 1988. And Finn had written all the tracks during since the 2 years since their self-titled debut. So on here we have got Neil Finn lead vocals and guitar, Nick Seymour on the bass and backing vocals, Paul Hester drums and backing vocals, with additional people that actually went on to become members of the band. We've got Tim Finn on backing vocals, Mitchell Froome on the keyboards, Richard Thompson does the solo on Sister Madly, Alex Acuna percussion, Heart Attack horns. First track on here is a thing called I Feel Possessed. It's a really nice song. I love the guitar work on here from Neil Finn. Great singing. He's a really good singer, and I love the keyboards. Really good track. I like that one. Then we get Kill Eye. Now this reminds me of another well-known Australian band, not AC/DC, but the other one called In Excess. Very In Excess, this track at the time. It was a sound, I think, that was unique to that part of the world. You got Midnight Oil and Men at Work. They all had that similar sort of sound. I really like the bass line in this from Nick Seymour. It's a terrific track. Into Temptation, not a particular favourite of mine. It's a little bit dull and meanders. Then we get Mansion in the Slums. Great guitar work here from Neil Finn. I mean, he's a really good guitar player, and that's why I mean, he's now in Fleetwood Mac, and you know that sound is pretty good. He does the sort of the classics really good, what I've seen on YouTube. But there's something about this song, it's really catchy and I do like it. Then we have a track called When You Come. Now this one reminds me of so much of the Waterboys, that same sort of sound that the Waterboys had. I sort of compare these two, this and Waterboys, some of their songs are really very similar. Really good track, I like that one a lot. Then we get Never Be the Same. It's a real good sort of solid rock pop track. Some nice hooky riffs. And very nice harmonies on this as well. The three of them, well, I think the four of them, Tim, Neil's brother Tim sings on this. Really, really good. Then we get Love of This Life, solid track. It's very pleasant to listen to. Then we get a track called Sister Madly. Now, the drumming from Paul Hester on this is brilliant. It's that jazzy sort of sound. I really like it. And they got the solo here from Richard Thompson. Really good jazz guitar solo. It's really good. It's probably my second favourite track on the album. Then we get a track called In the Lowlands, a really good track. It's not brilliant, but it's solid. It's a really good listen. And the last track on this one is called Better Home Soon. I think it's a really good song. It's a nice acoustic number with some nice vocals here from Neil Finn. Great backing vocals as well from everyone involved. It's a really good track. This album really mystified me a bit because it is a really good album and I can't understand why it didn't sell well over here and in America, because it's a very similar sound to In Excess Waterboys, and I just find it a really good album. It's got some great tunes, some nice harmonies, and the melodies are really strong, and I enjoyed listening to this. I mean, I hadn't heard much of this one, in all honesty, and I was pleasantly surprised. You know, I did read up on the reviews, and I'm glad I didn't take any notice, as you'll find out in a minute. Now, AllMusic praised this and said, but noted a change of tone from the previous album, saying the material on the Temple of the Low Men demonstrates great leaps in quality over its predecessor. It's a darkly difficult album. Finn digs into the depths of his emotional physique with obsessive detail, crafting the set of intensive personal songs. I've got nothing wrong with that. You know, because the songs are not, okay, there's some of it's dark matter, but they're quite the nice harmonies and melodies, which makes it good. Now, Robert Christgau, he always comes up with some weird ones. He panned this album as being buried in some sanctimonious self-pity, and commented that Finn neglected the only thing that he's had to offer in the world, perky hooks. I think that's rubbish. I don't slag off critics, but he doesn't know what he's talking about, because there's some really nice hooky melodies on this album. I really do think there is. AllMusic gave it 4.5 stars. The Chicago Sun-Times gave it 3.5. Then Cycle of Popular Music gave it 3. Los Angeles Times gave it 3 and a bit. Record Mirror gave it 3 and a bit. Rolling Stone gave it 4. The Village Voice from Robert Christgau gave it a C. So he was the only one that really thought it was crap. You're wrong. It is good. I like this album. It's a bit different and it's a bit gentle. So how did it do in the charts? Well, obviously it got to #1 in Australia, #2 in New Zealand, #10 in Canada, 20 in Holland, 40 in USA, and 99 here in the UK. But on the whole, I think it's a pleasant album. I was really surprised, and I am still miffed why this didn't sell outside as well. It should have sold over here. It's amazing that in America it got to 40, but in Canada, just a bit further up, it was a top 10 album. It's funny how everyone listens to things different. But I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 7.5 because it's a solid album. There's nothing wrong with this, and it's an album I'll probably listen to quite a bit if I want something a bit chilled and different. Okay, that's all for today. What have we got for you tomorrow? Well, we're starting a new series in the story of, and this one is actually a viewer's request. Someone asked me to do Rick Wakeman solo, but as you know, he's released so much stuff. The only way to do it was to split it up into decades. So tomorrow we're starting with part 1, and we're starting with the solo career of Rick Wakeman in the 1970s. And then we've got a retro ranking request tomorrow. It's a band that started off, put together for a certain competition in Europe called the Eurovision Song Contest. They had a pretty good career after that, and we're talking about Bucks Fizz. So I'm going to pick my favourite Bucks Fizz songs. I thought I'd struggle, but I didn't really, because it brought back lots of memories from growing up. Well, I'm a teenager when most of this come out. So looking forward to that. So have a great day, everyone. If you're first time watching, give us a thumbs up. And if you really like it, why not subscribe? Because we do all sorts of music on here. Most of it is rock and prog, but we do go into pop and other bits as well. So why not subscribe, hit that bell, and then you won't miss out on what we do. So I will see you all tomorrow. Bye for now.